We're talking about the state of public employee unions. Ben, I want to ask you a question about public employee unions. Are they losing their political clout?
They seem to be, they were losing it, let's put it that way. They seem to be losing it, particularly during the Arnold Schwarzenegger governorship, because he was fought battles with them all the time and basically fought to a draw. I mean, they didn't have a contract for prison guards for years, for example. But Jerry Brown was elected governor with a lot of union support, both directly and indirectly through independent expenditures. I think he knows he owes them. He's already delivered contracts that they were stalled, including one for the prison guards. I would say that at this moment, the unions are very powerful in the Capitol. They have strong Democratic majorities in both houses, elected largely with union money. Many of the members of the legislature are, in fact, public employee union members themselves. And so I would say right now they're very strong. Their problem is, strong for what? Divide up a shrinking pie. What they would like to do is expand the pie. The public employee unions would like to raise taxes and put more money on the table that they might claim, whether they're teachers' unions or prison guards or whoever they might be. But at the moment, that seems to be not happening, and it's questionable whether it will happen. And so they may be powerful, but to what avail, I guess you would not say.
John, I want to ask you about the state budget and the union's role in that. Are they in sync with the governor, the Democrats, or are they going their own way on taxes?
Well, I think, first of all, the governor and the legislature aren't in sync. The governor has a vision of an election on taxes, a vote on taxes in the fall, maybe. Darrell Steinberg sees something next year. John Perez doesn't say what he wants. I suspect he wants the legislature just to raise taxes on its own. And so the unions don't really know who to embrace right now. They want higher taxes. I think CTA, for example, wants some short-term tax extensions, and then they'd like to see something more permanent.
Okay, well, let's take a look at 2012 going forward. In terms of getting out the vote, do you think any proposition on pension reform will do for Democrats and their union allies what social issues like gay rights and abortion did for Republicans and their social issue allies in previous elections?
Well, that's possible. We don't know what's going to be on the ballot in 2012. We also know what the landscape is going to be like in 2012. It's going to be a presidential election year. That means higher voter turnout. We're going to have a completely new set of legislative districts. We don't know what they're going to look like. Neither do the legislators know what they're going to look like. So we don't know where the opportunities are going to lie or not lie, as the case may be. And we're going to have an entirely new primary system, a top two, so-called top two or jungle primary, that's going to change.
I've never heard it referred to as a jungle primary.
Well, that's the term the politicians use, jungle primary, where everybody's on the same ballot fighting it out, basically. And the top two won't go on to the November election, regardless of parties. You could have two Democrats running against each other, or two Republicans running against each other, depending on the district. So it's a very uncertain landscape in 2012. The unions will be in there pitching. As John says, they want taxes. They want more money on the table. They want maybe 10 or 12 billion dollars more state money on the table. But the pathway to get there is going to be a very difficult one, particularly because the polls show that the taxes are not popular with voters. That's why the unions now don't want an election, because they're afraid they would lose. The Republicans were willing to make a deal on the budget that had taxes going on the ballot, along with pension reforms and spending caps. Spending caps that the unions hate. They hate the pension reforms. The polls indicated those two things had passed and the taxes would lose. And so that's when the whole election scenario kind of went into stall mode. So it's a very, very uncertain, chaotic sort of situation right now.
Well, you know, John, I want to ask you about, what about the independent voters? If the Democratic Party is viewed as too close to the unions, is that going to drive away independent voters from voting Democrat?
It could. It certainly could, particularly if you take into account the switch in public opinion about public pensions. It seems like public pensions are becoming less and less popular with the electorate all the time as they've lost their pensions and they see government workers maintaining theirs. It becomes harder and harder, I think, for the regular person to justify the current system. And I do think that the unions, however, will use their organizational clout and their money to really try to keep people at home, discourage dissenting votes, and bring their own people out at the polls.
Okay, well, I want to thank Jon Ortiz and Dan Walters for being with us, as well as Paul McIntosh, the Executive Director of the California State Association of Counties, and Democratic strategist Steve Maviglio. If you want to learn more about Valley politics and policy, on our website you can get our daily newsletter, the Maddy Daily, on politics in the Valley by just simply logging on to our website at Maddy Institute.